All right, here we go.
All right.
I pledge allegiance
To
to the
the
flag
flag
of the United States of America
of America
Republic
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
We'll finish almost the same time. We do have some items on our modified agenda.
Stanley, before we move to that, can I share just a little bit about Google Meet?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a few things. We've been using this as a team as we've been really trying to work remotely. And we believe that each of us needs to do our part because each of us can influence others and maybe not even know it around helping keep people safe and healthy. One thing that we've learned is if you're not talking, will you please mute yourself? So if you hover on the bottom, you'll see a microphone. If you click it and it's red, then you're muted. And when you want to speak, then just unmute it. And that helps us not have so much feedback and background noise. I have a hunch that this isn't the last time that the team will be meeting electronically. So you may have a chance to get really good at this. Finally, one more thing. Will you please, because some people are on via phone only. So if you're the one speaking, will you please say your name? That's also going to help Bonnie with the minutes. So for example, if Carrie's going to make a motion, if she could say, this is Carrie, I'll make a motion, such and such. And then if George says, this is George, I second it, that'll help Bonnie keep the minutes.
Got it. All right, can we move on to modified agenda? Hello?
Hey, when we're moving on to modified agenda, is it our intent to just talk about the new stuff that's being added or address what appears to be an extremely large agenda for this particular meeting?
You can address it right now before we
I really think we need to split the agenda on this and maybe set up another meeting to cover a chunk of the agenda, just based on the new stuff being added. What's on the agenda right now has got to run about 4 or 5 hours, and I don't think that's a reasonable time for a board meeting.
I agree with George.
Any other thoughts on it?
I kind of agree. If you're going to spend a lot of time on all the new stuff, we probably need to, if we can hold a meeting in April, because we don't have WASDA that week. We'll be in town, so.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
That's true that there's only one meeting in April, and that was initially because usually there's a regular board meeting in April, and it's one of the only months that doesn't have a board work session because of spring break, which really isn't a factor as much anymore, especially now that the team will be meeting electronically. So you could have a regular board meeting and a board work session in April.
So I don't have the agenda right in front of me right now because I'm staring at Marcy's smiling face. But my thought is, and I would have to kind of defer to the folks that added all the new stuff. I know we have the conversation regarding our search firm for the superintendent search. I assume we have some status updates on what's going on with coronavirus, discussion on Secretary of State's request to delay all special elections until the August cycle. I'm assuming we have quite a bit to discuss just related to current state of affairs. I don't know if we have enough to just basically say, let's cover the coronavirus stuff and move everything else to the another board meeting in April. What's your guys' take on the amount of new material for the agenda?
The two new agenda items that I have is adding Northwest Leadership Associates to share the superintendent timeline. And then the second one is sharing the coronavirus update. We already have the levy conversation happening during the finance report. And at that time, that's when I'm going to share the information about the April levy. So.
How about could we just take a run at it? And if at some point we're like, okay, we need to stop this, it's too long, we can do so at that time. I'm in agreement, George. I feel like this is a lot to cover in one meeting, but I've often long agendas like this that we got through in a couple hours. So,
That's a good idea. Let's see how far we get. And if we get bogged down in a couple of hours, we can move stuff around and put it on the second agenda.
We
All
can
right,
move,
I'm flexible with that.
we can move it later without doing it right now. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I got a question. Is Tony on yet? Do anybody know? Was it 13 people?
I want to let people who are, if we have public comment and people are calling in, if you go *6, that will unmute you if you're calling in. Also, if you're online, you can see a chat box on the top right, and really that should be for the board because it's their meeting, and not, for the public unless it's a public comment. So just to share that, please. I'm saying that because Stanley, I heard you ask if Tony was on the call.
Yeah.
I wanted to let him know that if he is, he can press *6, and that would unmute him if he's on.
Okay, because I didn't see his name on the list. Let's go ahead with number 3, the modified agenda.
This is Melissa. I make a motion to add coronavirus update report and Northwest Leadership Associates report to the agenda.
This is Carrie. I'll second that.
Been first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed? Pass, thank you. All righty. So I'll be thinking let's get the Northwest Leadership up first. So we don't want to have them wait till the end of the meeting to present. So let's get them right off the bat, if we could.
Are you ready for us?
Yes, sir.
This is Wayne Robertson. I think Mark Min is on here, although I don't see his smiling face.
I'm on here.
Good deal. I'm glad you are.
I'm on here.
Great. I see you now. This is Wayne Robertson with Northwest Leadership. Mark Min and I will be the 2 search consultants representing our firm, helping the district with their search. And we're very excited about that. We're also very excited about the opportunity to stretch ourselves using technology. The district certainly got your money's worth out of Matt and Bonnie today, getting the 2 of us up to speed, mostly me. So I'll take just a minute and go over some of the things that I went over at the short interview that we had earlier in the month. Northwest Leadership, for the benefit of maybe the audience or some of the board members, a firm that's been doing superintendent searches in the region for about 20 years. We've done over 200 searches, mostly in the state of Washington, but also in Oregon and Idaho and a few other places. Mark and I have been working together since, I think, 2014. And we've done probably 20 some searches, the 2 of us together, all of them in the state of Washington. And we've done a few other searches separately. So we have quite a bit of experience, I guess, is the point there. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to work with the Oregon School District Board and staff and community and find you your next superintendent. You have our agenda that we sent to Bonnie earlier in the day. That's what we'd like to cover today. And some of this goes pretty fast. It's 11 items, plus introductions, but much of it goes pretty fast. And some of it the board heard the other night. So we'll given the conversation about the length of your agenda, will be brief. I thought it made some sense to start with the letter of agreement, the contract the district has with Northwest Leadership Associates. Any questions or any need to go over that? You approved it earlier, but I know there was some discussion. We can spend some time on that if you wish, or we can plow forward.
I believe the board voted to approve it, so I don't know that it really makes sense to talk about it further.
Okay, that works for me. Is that good for everybody? I'll assume so. So, so what we want to do tonight is go through this agenda, and the biggest piece of that is conversation about the timeline and the process. And if we can get some agreement on the closing date, we can get the position posted tomorrow morning. So that's our short-term agenda, and then move forward with some of the details down the road. Mark, you want to talk about the timeline options that we put together? The board has copies of those, I believe.
Sure. The board has, can you see me? Can everybody see me?
Your
Or
board
can you,
Yep, go ahead.
can you see me? Okay. The board was, when you talked with Wayne before, was presented with a calendar that is pretty lengthy and involved a lot of involvement with a lot of people. And with that in mind, we've come up with two other options that we want you to take a look at. With the coronavirus as it's come forward and the closing of schools and that, we think it'd be prudent to use this type of a format to do our search and not have as much one-on-one, face-to-face people to, within limits, of course, set down by the governor, interactions. So our main goal is to move forward with the search until April 15th. And April 15th is when we will try to do some sort of focus group with your community, with your staff, with your principals, with your district office people at that time. We can either do that in person, which would be small group work. We can come down there to do that, or we can actually do that with a similar format that we're doing that right now. So if you look at option one, that's what Wayne presented to you. The position closed under option one on May 8th. And that means that we would be coming in on April 15th to do the focus group work. April 29th, we would do a mid-search report. Usually we do that with the board. Probably would not be a good idea unless school is back and things have changed to do that in another format other than what we're doing now. We also have a sense of urgency to get a online leadership survey up, which is the way we see most of your community is going to be able to be involved in this process. And we work with your IT people and Bonnie to get that going, and then come back. And the first option is May 13th. We have the candidates and we do a screening report to you as a board. You would have the option of looking at the applications ahead of time, and then we would do our screening report with you either in person or we could do it online. And then on May 16th, Wayne talked with you about having a full day of preliminary interviews. That's a full day, and you would have 6 semifinalists, 5 or 6. They would come in and spend the whole day. That doesn't seem very feasible right now in light of what we're dealing with, unless things change. So I guess the thing that we want to say is we're very flexible. We have to be through this whole process, but we want to get in as many people involved realistically and also be as transparent as we can be. So on the first option, we bring the finalists in for 3 days. They spend a whole day in the district. They finish the day up with a dinner with the board. And then they end up with usually with a community meeting. I don't know how we would do that in the first option. And then a final interview with the board in executive session. And you do that for 3 days. And the idea is on the third day, you would come to consensus and decide who you want as the superintendent. Are we okay with that first option? That's what Wayne pretty much went over with you before earlier in the month. So the second option, if you look at that, most of our meetings are via Zoom, which is similar to the Google format that we have here right now. We would meet online. And so on April 15th, depending on who you want us to meet with, we would meet via the Google or Zoom with individual community members, individual staff members, board members, to basically get your input on the focus group report that we would provide you on April 29th via Zoom or via Google. And we would prepare at that time for the interview phase, which would happen after the application deadline, which is on May 8th. Also on the application deadline, that's the deadline when the leadership survey closes, and we would be able to run a report for you on that too. We would expect in a district your size to probably have hopefully 250 to 350 responses on the online survey. And in the light of what's going on now, we would think that number would may even be higher. So on May 13th, we would do a screening report to you via Zoom, and you would have copies of the applications in front of you. And then on May 20th and 21st, which are a Wednesday and Thursday, we would do preliminary interviews with the 6 finalists that you chose rather than do the Saturday. And you would do each one via Google or via Zoom, and you'd interview 3 each day. And then we go into executive session and you decide who your 3 finalists would be. And then on May 26th, 27th, and 28th, we suggest that each candidate come in the district for a half day if we have the current situation we have now, and visit the schools, meet with selected staff, maybe have dinner with the board, depending on what you think. I don't know how we would do a community forum, but we could be flexible with that. And then the final thing is an interview with the board and executive session, and do that for 3 days. And then select on May 29th, announce your selection in a probably similar format to this. So the last option basically does a couple things. Everything's the same until the 15th. Of April. We would do a mid-search report to you after the focus group meetings and prepare for the interview phase on April 29th, like we've had before. But instead of May 8th, we would close the job on May 15th, an extra week. That being said, that would mean that we would not do preliminary interviews at all. And then when on May 20th, when we do our screening report online, you would select 3 or 4 final candidates that you'd want to interview. And the final interviews would take place over 2 days, and it would be a 2-day commitment from the board, but there would be 2 candidates each half day that would spend a half day in the district, a final interview with the board. You'd have an AM candidate and a PM candidate each day. And then on the final day, on the 28th, you go into executive session after the last candidate and come to consensus on who you would want to choose. So we wanted to give you some options in light of what's going on with the coronavirus and what's going on with our schools now. It did make sense to us that we should do more of what we're doing right now. I'm on the ESD board up here. I'm the ESD board president. We're holding our meetings online as well. You're doing the thing I think most districts are doing right now in light of everything. And we thought we could maybe apply that to the search as well and maybe break some ground for Wayne and I. We've done a little bit of this with Skype before, but this is kind of new ground. And like I said before, we're very flexible. So there's basically 3 options. The 2 we want to suggest are either 2 or 3. Either close the job on May 8th and then move from there, or close the job on May 15th and not do preliminary interviews. So I just threw a lot of stuff at you. So
I think the biggest difference between options 2 and 3 is whether you want to do 1 round of interviews That's option 3, or 2 rounds of interviews. That would be option 2. And it's your call. And we want to be flexible, and we want to be respectful of the health and safety of staff members and community and you folks and us and everybody.
I have to admit, I'm a little skeptical of the process going forward in this format. I know that one of the things the board talked about that we were really looking forward to is the ability for your group to sit down with our community and for the community to participate and really feel like they've given their 2 cents and that they had a seat at the table. I'm not sure they're going to feel that way on a video conference, but it might merit additional discussion on that. Also, with everything we've got going between now and the end of the school year, assuming we haven't already reached there, I just have some concerns over the timing of what we initially had in mind.
I think that's legitimate. There's no question that this is making some trade-offs on the process. We think the current situation with the virus does impact the process, and in turn impacts your community's engagement. We don't think it impacts the applicant pool. We think there are other variables that the applicants are going to be thinking about, and people will apply, and you're going to be looking at a good field of candidates. When we talk about the online survey, which, as Mark mentioned, is probably the one way you're going to get the maximum, at least numbers, maybe not the same tone and content of input, but there's a section in there for comments. And when people fill out that online survey, they typically answer 3 questions. What's going well in the district? What are the concerns or challenges facing the new superintendent? And is there anything else you'd like the board to know? And people, they rate a number of different questions on that. But what we find is the things they're most passionate about, they write comments. And the boards in the past have received very good and very insightful and very helpful information from that online survey. So if it's numbers of participants, I think the numbers will be there. And if we can figure out how to get some either FaceTime or telephone calls or something from some maybe key communicators or representatives of groups, that might address the concerns that you raised, George. My thoughts on that.
This is Melissa. I just kind of had a question regarding when you're talking about the focus group meetings that would be done via Zoom. I'm kind of in agreement that we need to take this as remote as possible while still trying to maintain, as George said, that feeling of community and that involvement. So I get that the online survey type thing is for the majority of people to contribute, but having the smaller focus group part, you said that that's kind of groups identified by the board. Is there a limit to the quantity of people for that since we're facing a situation such as this?
I don't know. The technology could be a limiting factor, but there ought to be a way we can work through that. What do you think, Mark?
Well, I think it depends on the size of the group. I think that we could certainly meet with the key people within your district. And as far as the community goes, I don't know how many you would expect if all things being said, how many people would show up for a community forum or a community meeting for focus groups. Normally in districts your size, we see maybe 20 to 30 people show up at the most. And I don't know what the technology capacity we have is, but we certainly could be asking them the same questions we would if we were meeting with them face to face. And basically we ask 3 questions. What's great about the Orleans School District? what are some challenges the new soup is going to face, and what are some attributes that you're looking for in a new superintendent. And then we put that into a report we provide for you at the mid-search point. So I think we could, I think if we put our heads together with your IT people and Bonnie and talk this through, I think we could get a fairly good representation and maybe accomplish not as many, but at least get some good feedback for you to look at.
Hey, this is Stanley. So if it's possible, you had too many people, could you add another session?
Sure. Yeah. And we've done that before. Or we could set up Wayne with one group, me with another group. We've done that before too. So yeah, we're very flexible on this. And again, we can work with you guys to get this together. Wayne talked about the priorities tonight is to get this job posted and start moving forward and get a closing date and start moving forward with the brochure.
I like that we could be flexible about that because I think we're going to have some challenges figuring out how to include the community. And if we can be flexible, that's great.
Sure. Yeah. And we're very flexible with this. This is the only search we have going on right now. So our total focus is with you guys. So.
Good.
Yeah.
This is Stanley again. So are the dates in concrete, or if something happened, can we move some dates around? So like they lift the ban, come say mid-April. Can we say, okay, now the one-on-one with a group of focused people?
Good question.
Sure.
I think given the world we live in right now, we're going to have to be that way. And certainly Mark and I can be flexible on the dates. The upside of having two of us is sometimes one of us will cover if the other one's got a conflict. I think it's just when we start locking into interview dates with candidates, some of whom might be traveling, that we get pretty cast in stone. But up until then, I think we can be pretty flexible.
Yeah. Once we need a closing date. The reason behind that is because we want to get this posted and we want to get it up on the WASDA and the WASA websites and our own website and start getting it out there. And then on the brochure, there's a closing date. You can put on your brochure and on your or until filled. So if it were to happen that we said it was May 8th and we wanted to bump it up to May 15th, you can do that. It's just when we start setting up appointments for people to get interviewed that we got to go in stone.
And we don't want to advertise at too many community events and then have to change them and have that be confusing to your community. We want to be, on our game as best we can.
So I have a question. One of the differences I'm noticing between option 2 and 3 is the option 3, I believe, yes, has the longer survey time.
Yes.
And I would prefer a process that allows the most opportunity for community input. But I'm curious, what have you experienced in the past? Like, does having an extra week of online survey availability, is it one of those things where everybody hops on early on in the process and you provide all the information? Like, is there value in keeping it open that extra week? Because from what I can tell, it looks like it's open about a month, which is a long time to get feedback. So when we're looking at that timeline.
The big variable is how the district advertises it and how it gets pushed out and to whom. And if you have a targeted list of key communicators and you've got some follow-ups with them, and that seems to be what really drives the numbers. Probably the week doesn't make that much difference on the participation in the survey. The people that are going to get on it, and other people will get on it when they're reminded, and it seems to work out okay. I think you'll have good participation on the survey with either timeline.
When we do our mid-search report on April 29th, we'll let you know at that time how many hits we have. And we won't have the results of the survey yet, but we'll let you know how many hits we have. So oftentimes districts will say, well, we need to do more advertising, or we need to get this out to our community more. Besides the internet, there's also, you can put it on reader boards and that sort of thing, and you can get it out through the individual schools as well. So it's something that if you push hard in your community and your community is used to participating in these sort of things, you usually get some really good feedback. And an extra week, I agree with Wayne. It's probably make some difference, but not a lot of difference.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is Stanley. Yeah, because I prefer 3 over 2, because I want that participation from the community, and that extra time is good.
Okay, so what 3 gives you, Stanley, and the reason we pushed that not partly was the survey, but the other part is you're not going to do the preliminary round of interviews. You're going to choose 3 or 4 finalists and bring those people in at the end. You're not going to do the preliminary. And the reason we put that out to you is because the preliminary interviews, if you remember right, that was a community event. The community could come in and see the candidates, and they would make comments and you would read comments. Well, that doesn't seem really feasible to do in light of what we have going on right now. I would say that if things change, like you said they might, we're not real confident, at least from the ESD point of view, that things are going to change. But if they do change, we could go back and do preliminary interviews and do the community piece. But if they don't change, I think we fall back on plan 3, where you just go with 3 or 4 finalists and then go from there.
This is Kathy. I like that you have that option, because the future is so unforeseen right now.
Exactly.
I don't think you'd want to advertise option 2 and tell the community that they were going to have a round of semifinalist interviews and then have to cancel it. I think you'd be better off to start with option 3. And if you get an opportunity to add a step, I don't think anybody's going to complain about that.
This is Melissa, and I kind of, I was missing the idea that we would have those preliminary interviews, to be honest with you, and whether those were done by Zoom or in person, and having to limit our community involvement in that step. If we can try to, even if we were to accept the third option here and be able to try to somehow make that work, whether it's in a Zoom format, including our community. Of course, it wouldn't have to be everybody in the community, but maybe some of those few key people, at least, that were included in the focus group. Again, just wanting to keep as many community members involved in the process as possible. Even in these dire times and what we're facing right here. So that's just my 2 cents, I guess.
Well, that's a good point.
I'm in agreement with Melissa on that too. I would just, I was really looking forward to that piece, that community piece, being part of our screening process. And even if we're doing it, through Google Hangouts, I still think it's an important piece that I don't really want to skip over that.
I agree.
That sounds like in support of option 2.
Then you want to move with option 2? Is that what you want to do?
This is Melissa. I think I'm in favor of option 2, kind of maybe even a hybrid of option 2 and 3. I don't know.
Everything's a hybrid these days.
Yeah, and we can do that. We just if we are going to do preliminary interviews, if you're going to do those, then you would need to advertise those, and we would have to come up with some sort of a format to do that. Some boards have chosen to just do preliminary interviews with key communicators, with just a select group of people, and as well as with the board. And maybe that's something you want to think about if you're going to do preliminary interviews, is you've got key communicators 12, 15 people in your community that you would select, and then you would include yourselves, and then you would do a similar interview to what we're doing right now. And they would provide feedback to you, and then you'd be able to make the selection to come to a consensus on who your final 3 would be, and then we'd have to figure out what that would look like.
Marcy, sorry, Melissa.
Go ahead.
I was just curious, I think getting the community an opportunity to interview the candidates is an important priority. I'm curious if our Google Hangouts technology or whatever platform we use, can we support a community forum electronically without incurring, exceptional expenses? I don't know what our limits are.
Yeah,
Marcy, go ahead.
I believe the search firm will lead that, but Google Hangouts could work, Google Meet could work, Facebook Live, or I don't know what the candidates are comfortable with, but I think there's some electronic options.
Okay. That's affordable.
They're free.
Yeah, I mean, this is new territory for us too.
Our tech team could help support it if the search team and the board are in agreement that they want to do something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we're
Melissa,
wanting to do what the board wants to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're in agreement then to go with 2?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it's from
Steve Rabb oversees technology and also pointed out that Zoom is another tool that we could use. It's a free tool and it allows so many people to participate. So that's another option as well.
Yeah, we're using that with ESD, but isn't there a 40-minute limit on that? I don't know. That's what,
We've been
unless you
told.
have a license. Yeah. We can work it out though. We can make it work. I'm sure we can.
So this is Tara, the communications coordinator, and I just went through a superintendent search in the Ellensburg School District where we had the community forums, and we actually also live streamed those on our Facebook page, and people could type in questions into the comments of the Facebook stream. My son is about to walk in the door and a dog is going to bark. I'm warning you right now. So sorry. Thomas, keep it down. Okay. Sorry. So anyways, and I do know that a lot of our community engages on Facebook. So that was just something I wanted to share. And
Yeah.
Good to know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So it seems like we're gonna go with 2.
Okay, so it will close on May 8th. Then we'll do a screening report to the board on May 13th, which is about 5 days later. All things being the same, it'll probably be this format when we do the screening report. And then we would do preliminary. You would narrow that down to 6 semifinalists or preliminary candidates. And then on May 20th and 21st in the afternoon each day, you would do 3 interviews at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. Again, we're flexible. That's just the times we threw out. And then that would be via Zoom or via whatever we come up with as a platform. And then after that's done, after those 2 days, you would basically come to consensus on who you want for your 3 finalists. And each one of those finalists would be spending a half day in the district on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of May. Does that sound reasonable right now?
I'm good with it.
You okay with it?
Okay, that sounds like a lock.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
Well, thank you for your time.
Well, we've got a couple other things.
I'm done. No?
pretty fast.
Yeah.
So one of the documents that we sent to Bonnie, and I think Bonnie sent to you, was a sample brochure or a vacancy announcement, and the one you received from the Lakewood School District that we used last year. And so this is a document we're working on. Actually, I sent a draft to our desktop publishing person today. I pulled information from your website and from the city website and something from Wikipedia, and then filled in board members' names. It's kind of a template that works pretty well. A couple things about the document. You're seeing an electronic copy of it. Sometimes we pass out a hard copy of it and the page breaks are kind of clunky, but an electronic document, it looks good. I also asked Bonnie for some photos representing your staff and community and students, of course, and we'll get that moving along, and then some other fill in the blank kind of thing. So what we'd like to do, and then I made some kind of assumptions about some of the challenges and the characteristics and some of that, and we'd like you to look at that and see if it's pretty close or have some input on it if it's not very close or if something's missing, so that we can get this moving along. What we do, how we use this is multiple ways. Once it gets approved by the board and Mark and I do our targeted recruiting, we'll send a candidate an application form and a copy of this document. So they know what the application process is, a little bit about the district, which they can find a lot more about the district. And they know what the board is looking for in the next superintendent. And then we use this also, we come back to it from time to time as you're deliberating on semifinalists or finalists. We go back to this as kind of the profile of the superintendent that you're seeking. Now, some of it changes and you have your own views of some of those details, but it's kind of an anchor document for the search. Lets the candidate know what they have to include in their application packet. So what we'd like to do is get a draft to you probably next week and have you start looking at it and kicking it back and forth. And then as we kind of move, get to know everybody better and we can finalize this, then we can have it ready to go. Pretty important part of the search. Questions or comments about that? Mark, anything to add?
Just that this is really a key piece to the search, because the applicants in their writing portion of their application refer to these pieces that are opportunities and characteristics that the board comes together. What usually happens, Stanley, is we go directly to the board president. He will send it to the individual board members. They provide feedback. It comes back and it goes back and forth with Wayne about 2 or 3 times. And then finally we get an agreement, a consensus that that's what we want to go with. And then we start our search we send that out to over 3,000 people. So, and we set a date as April 1st is hopefully a kind of a date we like to get it out by. So we've got a little work to do next week.
So you're going to send a draft over to Stanley, who's going to send it on and then take feedback back on?
Yeah,
Right.
We'll do that however you want. It can go to Bonnie, it can go to Stanley. However, whatever works, whatever you're used to doing in terms of editing and getting your input on the process. We don't send it out until Stanley or somebody tells us it's ready to go.
Okay.
It would be best to send it to Bonnie. That way she can keep track of who didn't, and we can go back and say, hey, you got any comments? So she can keep track of it.
Sure. Sure.
At the end of it, we could put it together and say, this is the final draft. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down and move on.
Right.
Perfect.
That'll work great. Good.
And
So
Mark, we're going to cover the next one, but anything to add on staff and community input?
just the fact that we really need to work together with your ITP on your website, whoever your webmaster is, because on the website, we want to have a kind of a one-stop shopping for the candidates, a site or an icon that says superintendent search. Your website's very good, by the way. Really, you've done a nice job with that. But include on that website, on the main page, superintendent search. So any candidate can go in and look at the brochure, can look at the your free and reduced, your test scores, your demographics, and all that without having to go through your total website, your district website, to find all that information. Your budget, there should be information on your budget there. Sounds like you've got an upcoming levy. Is that right, George? Did I hear you say that? You're talking about running a levy?
We're supposed to run one in August, in April, but I think the governor is gonna push it back until August.
Yeah, they up here they've done, everybody's dropped it. I know that. So you may have to, whether you want or not. But anyhow, that sort of stuff should be on that site, the superintendent. But it sounds like you've got a good IT program going there, and you've got a really good website. So we think we can, you can do a great job with that. So, okay, Wayne.
Next item, at some point, we'll need to know how you feel about some particular qualifications. Residency, is the person going to have to live in the district or just be close to the district? We typically put preferred and be an active part in the community, but that's going to be up to you. So we'll want to nail that down. If you want to require a doctorate, we'll want to know that. Typically, boards don't require that. If you want to require superintendent experience or just high-level leadership experience. So we'll have more opportunities to talk about that, and we'll get that figured out. We'll talk about recruiting, Mark.
Okay, recruiting. We have a list of about 60 people we will individually contact right now about your job. We've already been, probably about a half dozen people have already contacted us about the position. So we think there's going to be quite a bit of interest in your position. It's seen, it's a good sized district. It's seen as a nice community, as you well know. We're thinking that there's going to be a lot of interest. How many applicants we get in? We're getting right now anywhere from 15 to 25, normally around 20 applications that will come in, and they'll be in-state, out-of-state. In the state of Washington, you don't have to have a superintendent certificate or a doctorate to be a superintendent. There's no qualifications, so you could get somebody from the private sector as well. One of the things that we will need to know, though, is we will need to know and you'll have to come to some sort of agreement about what the salary will be. We know what her total package is. I have a sheet that compared to 13 other similar sized districts if you'd like to see it. But we would like to have a general amount of what the total package you're going to be offering. Districts your size right now are the package they're offering is around $220,000 total package, and the base salary is somewhere around $200,000, and that's what most districts your size are in your part of the state are paying their superintendents right now. So you need to let us know what that will look like. And so when the candidates call us, they ask us two things. Number one, what's the board like? And number two, what's the salary going to be? What's the total package going to be? So what you, as a board, will need to come to some consensus on what you think the salary should be. And you want to be competitive. You want to be competitive to get a good pool. So, okay. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Melissa. You mentioned that you had a list of like-sized districts with salaries. If you wouldn't mind, when you're sending us whatever to review, could you include that with that document that you send us?
Yeah, be happy to. Yep. Yeah.
Thank you, Melissa.
That was our intent.
I'll have to ask that.
Go ahead. Kathleen?
Oh, I just thank Melissa for asking that. I wanted that. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that we do regarding the contract is once we get that ballpark figure, that's part of the recruiting conversation. But through the course of the search, we want you to generate basically the contract, and then we pre-negotiate that with the candidates so that anybody that comes back as a finalist is in a position where they've seen that contract and they're willing to accept that contract. So there's no slippage at the end and no negotiations after you announce who you want to be your next superintendent. So we take care of that and take it off of your plate, and it works a lot better for us too. So we'd like to have you work with your attorney, somebody in the district, work with the attorney. So you have that all ready to go about the time where we talk with the semifinalists, and certainly by the time we talk with the finalists, so we can let them know what the package is and take all the mystery out of that. Another service that we provide, when we identify the finalists, we contract with a company out of Spokane called Pinnacle Investigations, and they do a third-party background check on each of those finalists, and they take a look at the candidate's criminal history, if they have one, which they typically don't, and their financials, and they also, and this is very important, they look at their academic credentials, their resume. If they say they have a doctorate from some university, that they really do, and that there really is such a university, so there's no slippage on that. So that's a service that we provide. Next.
And then the last part's just the media piece. I read the TNT pretty much. Is there a local paper out there in Orting?
No, we use the TNT.
Okay, so when we did the Puyallup search recently, we were available for them as search consultants if they wanted to, but most of the time they'll want to go through you, Stanley, through board president, on any comments. I don't think you need to reach out to them, but they may be wanting to know what the process is going to be and what we have in mind in light of the coronavirus and everything else. So it shouldn't be a big problem. They actually have done a pretty good job with working with us in the past in Pierce County. So we think that'll be good. And your communication mainly is through how you normally communicate, Facebook, your website, all that. If you do have key communicators, you might want to be thinking about who those people would be that you'd want to have part of that of the process. So, okay.
I think the last thing that from us is just kind of a summary of your time commitment, and our objective is to facilitate the search and to minimize the time that you have to spend. We know you're busy and you've got a lot of other school district and other things on your plate. So the big involvement for you is the deliberations around the selection of the semifinalists and finalists, and then the interview time frame where you're needing to be there. But other than that, we try to minimize your time. We try to work through the board president, and we try to, Bonnie will be really happy to see us go when this is all said and done, because she's a key player in this. And I've already gotten to know Matt pretty well, and I'm sure you have some other people in the technology area, and maybe some people that work with your communications. So we'll work directly with them, try to minimize your time and carry as much of the load as we can. After it gets posted, it kind of sits for a while, so you won't think there's much going on. That's why we do the mid-search report, and we'll keep you informed. But anytime there's a question, you'll have, and Bonnie will have, our contact information, and we're available, anytime. One of us can be available at most any time. So we want to respect your time and do the work that we're supposed to do as your consultants. Questions or suggestions or ideas from the board?
I do have a question to the board. Are there any inside candidates that we should be aware of? Maybe Stanley, you can answer that.
No, I know of none right now. So, but if I do find out, anybody interested, I will just forward them toward you. So, okay. Yeah, but right now I don't know of anyone.
Okay.
Yeah,
and the other,
Lynn talked about the idea of us perhaps meeting next week. Is that something you're interested in, or just with you or another, maybe two board members? Not a board meeting, but
just get together. I'm flexible because I'm working at home now, so anybody else. But I'm flexible, so if you want to be with me, another board member, that's fine. Kathy lives right across the street, so.
Okay.
Well, let's think about that, and we'll be in touch.
Okay, so we're going with option 2. It closes May 8th, and then the idea is that we're, instead of doing all-day preliminaries, we're going to do it over two afternoons, evenings, and it'll be right now on Zoom or Google or whatever platform we use. So we'll have to work together closely, probably with Bonnie a lot, and maybe with Matt as well.
That's all we have.
Okay, we're good. Thank you.
We're going to drop out of your meeting, and it seems like you're going to be here for a while. Sorry we took so much time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. See you soon.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Tara because I heard some compliments around our district website, and Tara did such incredible work to redesign our website and make it accessible, easy to navigate. So I heard lots of shout outs on our website, and that's kudos to Tara. So thank you, Tara.
We're looking forward to meeting you.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. And that was actually a really great collaborative process of the community with the community and staff to build. So it was great. Thanks.
President Holland, I heard, I checked in with SALT to see if there were any items that were not as imperative, because that one item took nearly an hour. And the board can certainly make any decisions, but under reports, the finance report is of course essential, and we want to talk about levy at that point. The employee engagement survey could be moved to a board work session if you chose. The asset preservation really does need to happen tonight. And the long range transportation plan is not imperative, and that could be moved to a board work session as well. Just as some options for the board to consider.
Okay, well, let's see how far we get, and if we can move those. We did skip community and staff comments. If anyone have comments that's listening on the phone or other places.
I have a comment.
State your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Matt Carlson. I'm an assistant principal at the high school. I'm also a community member. My comment to the board, if you're ready for me to proceed.
Go ahead.
My comment to the board is 2 comments. I'll make them brief. Please, board, please, school board, regardless of what happens with the levy at the county level or state level, we should maximize our community to try and make the levy vote happen in April under any means necessary. And I ask you and implore you to do whatever you can in your power to help the citizens that are ready to vote yes for this levy make that happen by your actions tonight. Please consider that. I know that the state and the Secretary of State are pushing back. If we don't pass this levy, it is going to hurt kids. It is going to hurt our employees. So I implore you to seriously and carefully consider any decisions you make about the levy tonight. We need to run this levy in April, is my opinion. Second thing, I'm pleased that the board wants to get a new superintendent as quickly as possible, and I understand your urgency to do that. I also know that in this time, if we're not able to run the levy and the levy doesn't pass, or we're unable to levy and postpone, my wonder would be about the quality of candidate we would have seeking a position in a school district our size who has not had an opportunity to pass a levy going into the fall. And please do your best to consider those candidates carefully so that we don't go into a cycle with a leader who would not be prepared or ready to take on that kind of a challenge. And I guess my summary statement on that is don't be afraid to push back that process if you don't feel that the quality of candidate meets the muster for the leadership decisions that are ahead of this school district and this community to come. You have my support as a board. I will do whatever is needed to pass the levy, ensure quality leadership continues to take place in this district, and I implore you to think thoughtfully and carefully about the decisions you're about to make because they will affect children for years to come in this community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Does
Matt.
anybody else? Any other comments?
Yes, my name is Laura Fisher, Laura Levy Fisher. I am a community member, a voter. I've had grandchildren in the district. I'm a past board member. I'm an employee. I have a few questions to ask. I was just wondering, is Marcy Shepard, our superintendent, are you currently in the state?
I'm actually traveling, but I am working remote. So I worked all day today and have a full schedule planned, but I'm traveling while working remotely.
So you are not currently in the state?
Right, yes.
And I'm also wondering, are you on
I'm
vacation?
sorry, I didn't ask President Holland if I could answer. Sorry about that, President Holland. I just jumped right in. I know usually you say just take comment, sorry.
No problem. Go
I'm
ahead.
wondering, I'm wondering if you are currently working or if you are on vacation, Marcy.
President Holland, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm working.
Okay, so you're not on vacation.
Right, I have, sorry.
And I have another question. So if you are being allowed to work remotely, I'm wondering why that is when there are other staff members that have been in the building working.
We're actually encouraging people to work remotely, and we are, we're going to be talking about that at the coronavirus update.
Okay, so then I guess, did the board collectively agree to allow you to work remotely?
President Holland, can I answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
I know typically we don't have a discussion here at this point, but I called President Holland before working remotely, and I also worked with my team around working remotely.
So President Holland was the one that gave you permission to work remotely, not the board collectively.
Yes, yeah, and that's permitted.
And then my last question would be, have you moved out of the district?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you asking, I have a house in the district? Is that what?
Yeah, are you currently living
You're
in the
asking?
district, or are
you asking about what my
moving?
last name is? Yeah, I'm moving to Ohio.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm not sure I understand.
Yes, I'm just wondering.
Are you
Pardon
asking
me, I'm
if I'm
sorry, I
moving?
couldn't hear you. I'm asking if you have moved already.
Three minutes is up.
Hello?
Yeah. I don't. Are you coming to the end of the question?
Yeah, I just asked it. Has the superintendent moved out of our district?
I own one house and it's in Ording, and I am transitioning to, like, this part's personal, but yeah, I'm happy to share that. I am working remotely, and am available and have been available. In fact, I've worked all day. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm finished with my questions. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, hi, this is Amy Lalone. I am a parent and a former employee of the Ording School District. Are you ready for my question?
Go ahead.
Okay, I just have a simple question about the levy. When you say that we really, as Mr. Carlson had put it in front of you, that we really want the board to really think about the kids and the community and the staff that are affected by this levy. If we don't get this levy on the ballot for April, let's hypothetically say that it gets pushed forward by the state to August. At what point is the board or the school district going to ask the state for funding to help us during that transition time during the summer, where we have to make our budget ready to go. We have to have our staff ready and up and running. Who's going to get that information to them and ask the state for the money to help support us to that point? That's my biggest concern, is if we don't get this levy for our kids this April, what are we going to do in August? Because that money's too late. It's already been dispersed. We need to pull the money, and are we going to ask the state for help? Because I think we deserve it. As a community and a parent, and I have kids and employees in this district, if we start riffing people when this all happens, as some of your board members know, it's not pretty. And who's affected? Our kids. Our kids are number one. They are not going to have sports. They are not going to have certain band events. They're not going to have transportation. They're not going to have special education. These are powerful and important to me for each and every kid. It's not my kids anymore. It's the future of Orting. And we have to step up for them. And if we need to do it now, and if we don't, we need to go to the state and ask them to help us. That is my question and concern for this levy, and it is the most important thing that should be on anybody's list. Even the superintendent, as Mr. Carlson said, should have this ready to go, and are they ready to fight for our kids? Because that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not hearing none, so we're going to move on to the reports. The first one will be the financial report.
This is Marcy Bannon. Usually this has been a prepared by. Is there something you need from me or questions?
No, I'm just trying to see if anybody got any questions.
Okay.
I have no questions regarding the normal financial report.
Neither do I.
No, neither do I.
Alrighty, no questions on that one.
Okay, then Marcy Shepard and I would also like to talk about the levy during the financial report. And I know that Marcy first wants to talk about the timeline and elections, and then I'll jump back into the conversation.
Hi there, it's Marcy. I got bumped and just rejoined. Were you guys able to, and so sorry, I might have missed a piece of this. The finance report was prepared by Marcy Bannon. Did you guys already do that part of it?
Yeah, we moved on.
Huh?
We're waiting on the levy report. That's what we're on.
Okay, great. So with our levy, we know that the levy was 11 votes away February ballot, and we refiled on February 28th for the April election. On March 2nd and 3rd, we had our listen and learn sessions. I'm just recapping the timeline for the board that we've discussed in our previous meetings. And then on March 11th, I let the board know that our leadership team was coming together to work on budget scenarios for in case the levy did not pass. And that's worst case scenario. I believe it would. And then we wanted to bring information from that back to you at this meeting, March 19th. While we were waiting, we wanted to continue an informational campaign and then begin our targeted campaign after today's meeting, when we come to some agreement and some discussions around a plan in case the levy doesn't pass. And again, I believe it will. And that's for the April 28th election. Since then, I have been really busy talking to many people around the state. I talked to the attorney, the Pierce County auditor, the person who's in charge of elections, because I heard that they were considering canceling the April election. I was really clear about, they asked actually if we would consider not running it in April. And I was really clear about the negative impacts that that would have on our district. And I said, we will run it in April. And unless we're absolutely forced not to be able to, we will run it in April. We are not backing out. That's not something we would choose. And I let them know the hardship that that would cause for our system. They said they would take that message back, but they anticipated that the consensus would be that they didn't want to run an April election. I continued to talk to them, and the elections folks met. They wrote a letter to the governor requesting that the April election be canceled. At this point, that letter is on the governor's desk, and he is going to be deciding if he's going to sign it or not. The future dates for elections are August 4th and November 3rd. Again, I think that running it in April is imperative and needs to happen, and I advocated for that in all my conversations. In fact, this morning, I was on the phone with the leaders across our region and across our whole state around the coronavirus, and one item that came up was about the levy elections. And Superintendent Rakedahl said that he's going to be going back to the governor to share the financial impact to see if any relief will be provided for districts that cannot run an election in April because of the coronavirus. And that was just on our phone call today. Again, I've been really busy all day trying to support this work. So the Superintendent Rakedahl will also be advocating that if it has to get canceled, might there be some relief districts who essentially will be building a budget on what feels like a double levy failure.
Marcy, are you ready for me?
Yeah, any questions just about the April election piece, where that is? And right now they wrote a letter to the governor and it's sitting there.
Marcy, do they have any indication of a timeline on a decision for that? I mean, I feel like everything's evolving, but.
It sounded like they had a sense of urgency around working on that. I mean, I was on the phone all week with these folks. So they kept calling me, I kept calling them, and they were responsive in those phone calls, sense of urgency around this. So I don't know the governor's schedule, but I felt a sense of urgency around it. I let them know. In fact, I said I'd like to know before tonight. And I knew it was a press, but I said I'd actually like to know before tonight at 6 p.m. because I wanted to be able to bring that information to you. So I said if they had any indication if it was going to happen, I could bring that to you. And of course, I haven't heard yet.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of kind of questions or comments. I don't even know if you attempted to address them, Marcy, as you were going through. This is a difficult meeting to be able to understand everybody. But if we are not given an option and the governor decides that the vote is not going to happen, the levy vote cannot happen, that they're just not going to publish the materials that we need, and then we're kind of stuck. Is there going to be any sort of assistance, like delaying our budget to the OSPI? Is there any kind of support that we're going to have financially to be able to, if you kind of get my drift, what I'm, to kind of protect us if we don't have a choice whether or not we get to vote and it's not our community that says no? Is there something out there to kind of help keep us up?
Well, that's exactly what we worked on today and what we talked about with on the phone call today with Superintendent Rakedahl. And he said that he was going to carry that exact message forward to see if we could get any relief because of the canceled election. So that was going to be one of his next steps as well.
Thank you for clarifying that. As I said, I thought I heard you say Reichbell's name, but I couldn't really hear the content that went with it. So I appreciate saying it again if you had already said it.
So our team got together and talked about worst case scenario. If the levy didn't pass, the board asked us to bring back to you what that would mean for our budget. And so we worked on that as a team on March 11th and then costed it out since then. And Debbie and I worked together today she was categorizing it and organizing it. We had a chance to confer today, and Debbie is going to share that with you.
Thanks, Marcy. Hopefully my microphone works this time. Looked like it might not have been working. Can you hear me this time?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So as Marcy said, we did work with the leadership team to brainstorm ideas, and then we have since aggregated those and we want to share that with you. So we did share this information with leadership, which comprised of SALT and principals today. I also called our union partners because they're a big part of this as we move forward. As you know, we have collective bargaining agreements with our unions, OEA for teachers, PSE for our classified employees, and OXA for our coach staff. Should we need to reduce our budget, should this happen, we would need to engage in negotiations. So I want to be really clear about that because we're sharing with you ideas that we went through that we felt that were possibilities, but it is all in draft form. As you may know, collective bargaining agreements are really overseeing wages, hours, and working conditions. So as we consider these types of things, they could very well be in that category, whereas not all of them are, but some are. The amount that we estimate that would need to be reduced from the budget, should we not pass our levy or not be able to run the levy in the month of April, would be 3.5 million. And within that, how we've categorized the items that we have, they're just shy of 3.5 that we have so far. They're just about 3.4 million. What we're looking at and the way that they're categorized is, and it's at a high aggregate level, as I said, are reducing some of our contracts. We have contracts that are in the areas of professional development. For staff, we have some safety contracts. And so we do have those on the list. Do you have a question, George?
I noticed we have a column for approximate savings, but no column for total category spend currently. So I don't really get a sense of what any of this means in relationship. I mean, are we asking for a 5% cut, a 10% cut? I have no idea. Is there any way we can have a column added for total spend in that category, and then a reduction percentage that follows each line?
Certainly, we can work with that. Right now, the total spend is approximately 9% of our budget, but I understand what you're saying about the categorical, so we can work on that.
Yeah, I want to know what it means to save $136,000 on contract services. I mean, if we currently spend $150,000, it means quite a bit to save $136,000. If we spend, $1 million, it means somewhat less. So there's no sense of scope on this approximate savings. None of these numbers compare to anything currently. Okay. And then, another one. Another issue I have with it is it also doesn't tell me what that means. For example, if I go down to certificated staff K-5 class size cap adjusted upward, I assume what that means is we'll reduce the number of teachers because we'll increase the number of kids in a class. Is that correct?
Yes, that is
and
what that.
How many teachers are we thinking on that?
So what we did for tonight's data is we have the granular level back at within our documentation that we worked on with leadership team, but to honor the fact that we have not yet had those conversations with our unions, we did not put numbers of FTE or hours for the reduction, but we do have that separate for our conversations with leadership.
Okay. If I were looking at this as just a voter's perspective, another example, athletics cutting 281,000. Does that mean there's still going to be athletics, or is that a total athletics cut? If there's still going to be athletics, what does that look like? It's just not actionable in the current format. No direction that can be taken.
I'll share a little bit with you specific to athletics to give you some scope. So I am aware that we spend about $600,000 per year with regard to athletics. And even when Marcy Bannon and I were talking today, as we were doing some final costing on this, we determined that there may be some more capacity within that category that we did not accurately capture, because we know that there is a spend of about 600,000.
Okay. Another question I have is, are we covering any shortage elsewhere, or is 3.4 million our actual need?
3.4 million is the actual estimated need. As you know, budgets are, they're dynamic, they move, and we are anticipating a certain amount of revenue, and therefore we are anticipating 3.5 to be the amount of shortage if the levy did not run.
Okay. And the only reason I'm asking that, if it's 3.4 or 3.5, our levy ask was 3.9 million with a state match on top of that of 1.6 million. So if it runs and passes, we're going to bring in 5.5 million to cover 3.5 million worth of expense.
Yeah, levies operate, as you know, they operate 2 times. We bring in levy dollars 2 times per year. And we already have a levy through the year of 2020, which ends on December 31st. And then we start the new year with a new levy amount. So that's why there's a portion of it, not the full amount. But it also is balanced with an analysis that Marcy Bannon has to do with what we've anticipated for our 4-year budget for the year of 2021. And so that's why it's not an exact cut in half. It still is affected by that total analysis. Does that make sense? It's half of the levy dollars coming in for next year.
So the 3.4 million is half of, so the actual impact, if we were going for a full year, would be almost 7 million?
Well, there are some other pieces in there, George. So our Director Kinnenberg,
George is fine.
Thank you. Such an unusual format too, right? So if we were to take, right now we have a levy that will provide us revenue in the month of October and thereabouts. And then we will have additional revenue in April. So whereas, I don't know how to say it better, whereas we will take half of the available dollars because the levy will run, if we were to pass the levy, it would run from January 1 to December 31st. So you're right, 5.6, we would take half of that. It was 3.9 and 1.6, I believe, were the amounts that we were looking at. So the 5.3, but the other adjustments in there, while I can't define them in this moment without data in front of me, it has to do with the local dollars needed to be able to put together the budget that we anticipated having when we put together a 4-year budget. So there's some.
So I just have to admit, we probably want to define this a little bit, because this is one of the tools we're going to need to take to our voters to win their approval. And just right off the bat, as a voter, if I'm looking at it and 5.5 million is the aggregate between the levy ask and the state match, and you're telling me the negative impact of not passing it is 3.4 to 3.5 million, I would expect them to be the same.
You would, and keep in mind that in the spring, we do have the larger collection.
Right, but we're talking about what the impact is for the next school year, right? This 3.4, 3.5 million, and the levy, between the levy and state and money. It could all be.
I'm sorry, Director Canberra, I couldn't hear your last comments. There was too much background noise somewhere.
Well, the approximate savings that are listed of the 3.4, 3.5 million, that reflects the impact to the next school year, right?
That is correct.
And our levy that failed in February and the state match that would have come had it passed would have impacted the next school year also, correct?
That is correct. Half, yes.
So I'm
Yes, the
confused
latter.
on why our ask, between our ask and the state match, what we're asking for is 60% higher than what we say the impact of not getting it is. So we asked for a total of 5.5 million. And on the upside, we're saying that without levy dollars, we're going to have to cut $3.5 million of stuff. Well, that tells me there's $3 million or $2 million else out there from somewhere, or we asked for more money than we needed.
But the remainder of that 2 million would be in the following year because that's when the collection would occur. It would be in 21, 22.
Right.
Yeah, the calendar year and the fiscal year and the school year are not the same. So the fiscal year is not the same as a school
So
year.
what's the period impacted by the approximate savings?
What school year is impacted by the approximate?
Period. If we're saying the fiscal year and there's a mismatch between the calendars between the approximate savings and the levy ask, what is the date? Is it 9/1/2020 through 8/31/2021? Is that the dates used for the approximate savings? Or what's the fiscal year for the school?
The fiscal year for the school is September 1 through August 31st.
So
I don't know.
2020 through August 31st, 2021. The impact, if we don't have a levy, is we have to cut $3.5 million. The levy ask is for Jan 1, 2021 through December 31, 2021, correct?
Correct.
So we have a 3-month difference, but I'm not sure that really accounts for anything because the levy would cover part of the next school year. So I guess I only see that difference with actually increasing the delta, not decreasing it.
Director Kinneberg, I'm going to say one thing, but I'm not sure that it's to your point, and so bear with me if I get it wrong. As an example, and these are not exact dollars, but I just want to use simple math to share the example. Because we're asking for 3.9 million in the year 2021, and we know that we would get, I honestly don't remember right in this moment because I don't have it in front of me, but I believe the LEA would be 1.6. That totals 5.5. So let me just use an example, not an exact. If that is 5.5, then let's just say that we would get 3.5 of that next spring. So in the spring of 2021, and we would get the remaining 2 million in the fall of 2021. So because we get a larger amount of levy dollars in the spring, and just using that made up math in this moment, then does that help at all to show how we have the difference of when the money's coming in and when the need is?
Okay, if what we're saying is we're going to get a certain percentage of those dollars and that'll impact the 2021, 2022 school year, and then we're going to get a certain percentage that are going to impact the following school year, is that what we're saying?
That's correct. And if we run a 2-year levy for 2021 as well as 2022, and as you know, our proposal was to ask for 3.9 and then to ask for 4.1. That total $8 million plus the LEA would be another 3.3. So within all of that, we're going to affect our budget in the school year of 2021, 21-22, and 22-23.
Okay, so what percentage of the collection would impact this school year? Or impact next school year?
Next school year.
We pull a higher amount in the winter, springtime, correct?
I believe it's in the spring. Higher collection in the spring.
And do we know what percentage of it they pull in the spring?
I don't know that answer.
Okay, well,
I just know that our business services administrator has estimated, based on our budget needs, that our need for next school year, based on that first half, is a shortage of $3.5 million.
okay, so I'm gonna need to know what the total amount that would come in the spring to cover that need would be.
It's the total need that would come in the spring to cover that.
We're saying that next spring we would have assuming we get the levy passed, we would get a larger percentage of the 5.5 million would come in the spring. So I'd kind of like to know what that would be. What we're anticipating our spring tax haul from the levy and the state match would be next spring.
With some minor adjustments, I believe it is near 3.5.
So this is Melissa. Can I maybe try to clarify in my mind things? I feel like things went a little sideways to what my understanding is. So because our property taxes are on a calendar year, but our school budget is on a school year, we have that overlap of funds received and funds used. So we are using funds for the 2020 property tax season. The money that we're paying in for our schools is being dispersed out for 2020 and 21 school years. So your budget calculations and what we may have to cut back on, am I correct in understanding that this wouldn't be a full picture if we do not pass the levy? There's still going to be more cutting that will have to happen with the next budget cycle because we haven't fully realized that whole $5.5 million that we would lose potentially.
You are correct, but the added piece to that is I anticipate, and it's obviously the board of directors' decision to do this, but if we were to go out for a 2-year levy and we did not pass that levy and we reduced our budget and we would go through that next school year, I would anticipate the board would consider running another levy, whether it be 1 year or more. It can go up to 4 years, so 1 year or more. And then, I hope you can hear me. And then, so you would have the opportunity to reduce a second year of reductions if you were to run a subsequent levy.
That actually makes sense to me. That makes sense to me, and why this looks, because when I first looked at it too, I kind of got the feeling like, why is this? But then knowing how and why is this, meaning why does our budget look $3.5 million is all we need when we would get 5.5. But it makes sense to me if I can visualize that calendar year of receipts that we get versus the school year of expenses, and when you have to do the budget and when you have to identify those expense cuts in order to meet what you're expecting to get, and knowing too that we would more than likely attempt another levy, all things considered, after taking all that other stuff into consideration. So that kind of makes a little more sense to me. So
This
And
is.
we did, just to be transparent, we did share at the last board meeting, we let you know that when we were going to our leadership budget summit, it was to cut 3.5, and we tried to break it apart. So I think if we pull up the other board docs, it might help, because it breaks apart the two numbers of our levy and LEA to show meeting together to try to reduce it by 3.5 or 3.4 to 3.5 million for the 2021 school year.
This is Kathy. I thought that if you failed 2 levies, there were some restrictions on when you could run one again. Maybe that was something in the past, but I thought that was still current.
Marcy, do you know the answer to, Marcy Shepherd, do you know the answer to that?
Is this, Kathy, are you saying if the April levy fails, when can we run it again? Is that the question?
I thought there was a restriction on how long you had to wait to do that again if you fail it twice in a row.
That's certainly something that we can gather information on. I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, it could be something that's changed now. It could have been something. So thank you.
You're welcome. Would you like me to talk about the categories of possible levy reductions? Or should I?
No, yes, I would like to understand more about what those line items mean.
Okay. So not everybody has the ability to be online on the computer right now. So I thought maybe I would start by just categorizing. When we first started aggregating the data, we were looking at staff and stuff, as you've heard me call it. And so MSOCs are operating our supplies, et cetera. We did, as I mentioned, we did look at what it would look like to reduce some of our contract expenditures. We also looked at, are there any areas where we could take categorical funding and shift it? So, for example, we have some of our staffing that is currently being paid out of basic ed, but could we utilize within the scope of what is allowable, could we utilize more of that FTE over in the CTE, the career and tech ed category, just to give some relief to the basic ed, to the general fund? We then looked at staffing, and we looked at it in multiple categories to include represented and those employees who are not represented. Within those, and keep in mind that our principals do also have a bargaining group. They're categorized as administrative, so that would include our entire, categorically, it includes our entire leadership team, which would be SALT, as our superintendent's cabinet, as well as principals. So we looked at what, if any, what items could we give as salary concessions? So maybe it's not a person, maybe it's not an FTE under that line, but would it be something of a give back? So like a supplemental day, I'll just use as one example. And then we also looked for each of those categories, what it would look like if it was staff, if it was reducing an FTE by a whole FTE or a partial FTE. So categorically, we looked first at administrative staff, then we looked at certificated staff. Within that, you'll see that there also is a, as Director Kindenberg already mentioned, there is an area where we were considering what it would look like to enter into discussions with the OEA union about raising our class size. We do have language in the collective bargaining agreement that says that if there is a double levy failure, that we could increase those class sizes, which is not ideal, but it's an area of consideration. We looked at.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
You bet.
It's Kathy. The cutbacks that in that area, you would be making sure that you wouldn't be losing out on the state small class size money, right? So that we wouldn't be losing that money also.
Kathy, that's a great question. We did look at that, and I believe this is the net effect of that, but I can tell you that there was over $100,000 in loss to revenue by reducing in the K3 area. But we were looking at a cost benefit for that in full. But yes, that was part of our consideration.
It's hard to look at losing more money.
It is. The overall savings was greater than the cost, but none of it's fun. You're right. It's all.
That's what I was going to bring.
It's hard. Yeah,
I was going to bring that up too. We're trying to find out at what point, if we maintain the K3 class size at 1 to 17, that doesn't mean one child with one teacher with 17 kids. It's a funding model. But at what point does that pay off versus adjusting class sizes, even if some of that funding is lost? But would it still be a savings? So we're looking at which is the net savings.
Yes, I understand how the ratio works. Thank you.
We also did the same thing for classified personnel, where we looked at, are there salary concessions and are there positions? Within classified personnel, we did look at some, I'll say opportunities for conversation, which sounds too pleasant because all of this is hard, but opportunities for conversation with our union partners about what it would look like to make small reductions to, for example, a position. So maybe that position had a little bit less time as opposed to losing full staff members, which has greater impacts to our students. Then we also looked at, as was already mentioned, our athletics. And in addition to that was extracurricular, which would be clubs. And keep in mind all of these staffing areas that I'm talking about are represented. And then we looked at curriculum and what we could do there as far as we do have some adoptions coming up, but we haven't yet budgeted for those. So that was not an area that would help except on the ask side, but this is more on the reduction side. So we looked at some other items like consumables. And honestly, I believe that's going to take more conversation because we already know that if you reduce some consumables, but you need to make copies of things, you could have an offset. So we need to look at that further. And then we also had schools and departments that have reductions to their budget. The reductions of 10% are for schools and departments. And sometimes we think of that, and when it's 10% as a really large number, I can tell you in human resources specifically, it would be about $7,000. So when we look at just the operating budget that is assigned to each school and building, it does not, it ends up not being a large number, but it is part of the picture. And then we also looked at travel, and you may look at that number and say, wow, that's a really small number. It seems like we have more travel expenses than that. And I can tell you that as a first blush, we were looking at what it would look like to reduce some summer travel. For example, we have what's called an AWSP, a WASA conference in the summer. It's one that our administrators get refreshed and learn lots of things about, but we also have other resources. So that was one that we looked at too. As you can see, that total is just shy of $3.4 million. And we believe we still have some work to do on this, not only in identifying dollars, but also working with the actual categories with our leadership team and then unions.
Oops. Again, from my perspective, I'd really like to see a total spend column, percent reduction column, and for areas where we need to define it, you know, on the teachers, how many teachers are we talking about potentially losing? What does the athletics and extracurricular program look like running at 50% of its current budget? Right now, I can say a 50% cut to that is going to be painful, but I don't know what it means. I can't tell anybody what it means. It's not something that's actionable.
George, I think that what we're sharing right now is our data, and we'll be working with the team and with Tara to communicate how do we paint a picture of what each of these means? So you're talking about actionable. How do we put a face and a story to it? So that's this is bringing the data to you. This isn't the story and what I don't know. We're going to be adding some communication around it that I don't know, that might help clarify.
And that's fine. It's just best case scenario, in a month, we're running another levy. That communication needs to happen now. We need to be getting
we wanted to start with the board and bring you the data. So can you help me understand what a good next step would be if it's not like where we wanted to take this data, make it, paint a picture of what it means, make a communication plan around that. And in addition to that, is there something else that we can provide that would help the board out?
Well, if we're looking for a communication plan, I mean, what are the actual implications of this? We're going to lose X teachers. We're going to lose X number of paras, or reduce this many hours of classified employees' work.
Hey, George, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think that's what comes next from this. And so our ask of the staff was to put together, our ask of the staff at the last meeting was to put together this list. And I appreciate wanting to know the details of the story. And like you were saying, that actionable information, I think that is going to come next. And that's a fair, that's a fair question. I think Marcy and Tara addressed that, but that was part of the communication strategy, is that comes next after all of this detail that they needed to share with us at this meeting.
Actually, what was shared after the conversation we had after we failed the levy was there was some statements made about, hey, we need to get information out to people so that they can know what's on the board. And what was said actually at the time is, when we do that, when we come back in March and we do that, what we need to make sure it's real. We can't make these sweeping statements like we're going to eliminate athletics and then not do it, because we lose credibility. But
George, we're committed to not doing that. We talked about that last time. We are committed to not doing
what I said.
Yeah.
We would not do that. However, what we said we would do is provide the people with an actual picture of what was going to happen. A real credible, this is what's going to happen. These are just numbers. And when are we expecting that picture? Because we can't wait till middle of April to get that, because that's too late.
I'm happy to jump in and talk about that a little bit, if you'd like. This is Tara, by the way, for an update. Okay. Let me turn my camera on here. So we had initially planned to start sharing, phase one of our communication plan was listening, and we did that. And we took a look at those results, and we have a really good understanding of what we need to communicate, which is very much in line with what you're saying. People need a more more of a magnifying glass on what it means. So phase 2 of the campaign, until we got to this point where we're sort of now looking at the budget, was to start sharing this week information about state funds versus we employ. And in a minute, I'm going to share my screen with you and show you some examples of that. All of the materials are ready to go. There's 14 social media posts with 14 corresponding Facebook cover photos and a website in the background of our current website ready to go. But on March 11th, we started communication around the virus. On March 12th, Governor Inslee told us that we had to basically close our schools from March 17th to April 24th. And I really struggled because I was ready to go. I mean, I'm ready to push this out there, but I talked to some people in the community, including our citizens group, and I asked the question, do we wait a week? Because it feels to me a little tone deaf to start pushing out levy information when we're closing schools and we're trying to feed kids. And the consensus that I heard from everybody was just hold off just a little bit. We're trying to get through this. So that's where we're at. Now, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and try this fun new thing. Unfortunately, if you're on the phone, you won't be able to see it, but I'm gonna try to share my screen with you because I wanna show you an example of, let's see, what we're looking at here. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet, no.
Oh, man. Okay, let me see here if I can get this to work. We're all new to Google Meet, so share. Oh, choose what you'd like to share. Okay, I think we got it. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So on the left is the door hanger that you requested. On the top is an example of a Facebook cover photo, and then on the bottom is examples of 2 of the social media posts. We have 14 of those. And so, for example, if you look at the nurses one, it says, the state funds 0.425 nurses for the entire district. We employ 6 to support student health. The transportation one says, the state does not fund transportation services for students that live within 1 mile of our schools. We provide this service for our youngest learners that live in Village Green and all preschoolers in our district. And we have pictures of staff and students in our district. We have one for Officer Boone as well when we talk about student safety. And so then with this information, basically the campaign slogan is your levy at work. And we're showing all of these ways that the levy works in our district and the people who the levy employs without calling out individual staff members that, you know, like Debbie was saying, you know, we haven't had those conversations yet. So what we're trying to show our community is that the levy does not fully fund education, and here are specific examples of that. Another statistic that we share is that around technology, that the levy helps fund 2,134 Chromebooks in our district. So we have 2 to share around extracurricular activities, and we have 2 to share around athletics. So like I said, there's 14 of these that were scheduled to start going out this week, but I just felt like, and I did ask some, you know, other people that it needed to wait a little bit until we figured out how we were going to feed and educate kids, and that's really the information parents need from us right now. So that's just where I'm at, but I just want you to know that we hear you.
I think these look really good. I think these are a great start. I agree. We can't really put anything out this week at this point because we're still waiting to find out whether we even have a levy to run in April.
Right.
So,
right.
You know, all this may be a moot point. But I also think if we take the time to pull up data, which we did, we need to put real faces with it. I don't want to put people's actual faces with it. I'm talking about we need to say, this is how many we're going to have to, this is what it means. This is what athletics and extracurriculars look like in the post-levy world.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that are going to, just like your your flyers, those are the things that are going to resonate with voters. Numbers don't resonate with voters. They don't really care, but they want to see the type of stuff you've already done. They want to see, what matters to them. Whatever on this, hey, I don't want K-5 class sizes to go up. So if we show them, beyond just this statement of class size adjustment, we're going to put X number of students, more students in a class, and therefore be able to eliminate Y number of teachers. I think that makes a big difference. I agree, though. It makes no sense to put this out right now because we don't know that we have a levy.
So can I just, sorry, George, don't mean to interrupt, but when it comes to the possible levy reductions sheet that Debbie was going through with us, can we just agree that we kind of wanted to see that current spend versus the approximate savings so that you, George, could kind of have an idea of what that percentage of reduction looks like? As far as the materials that are going out, we had a big wrench thrown in that, and that was kind of one of the things when I responded to the board information for this week. One of my questions was I really wanted to know kind of how we were on this communication plan for the levy faced with all that we're dealing with, all that everybody else out there in our district is dealing with in regards to the shutdown because of COVID-19. So I think what would have been happening isn't happening or can't happen right yet for those reasons that Tara just explained very well, thank you. Mm-hmm. And that some of that communication she probably already has on her computer is addressing some of those things we've already talked about that we really, really want and our community really, really needs to see, that actual specific information. I think that George, you and I know myself and Carrie and Kathy and Stanley, we've all been really clear that we want specifics, all those listen and learns that we went to, mm-hmm. and the community was saying, give us specific information. I think that stuff is in the works. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that anybody that's been working so hard on that stuff has ignored what we're asking for. I think it's just that's timeliness of having these two major disasters, in my opinion, for our school district at the same time. And of course, having to take one at a time to deal with, putting one still working on it when you can in between all the other fires. No less important, but
right.
be done at the same time kind of thing. So if, just to kind of say, can we kind of move on to maybe the next item, taking your possible levy reductions and putting that information that you really want to see in there, George, so that we can see the total spend versus the approximate savings, and knowing that Tara and whoever else is working on the levy communications, that you're working on that stuff, knowing exactly what we're expecting and need our community to see.
Yeah, I think that's good. Marcy Shepard, just a question for you. I know you asked them to get back to you today before the meeting on any relief or the likelihood or what chances we have to push back on still keeping our levy in April. What do we have for kind of a realistic thought on when they might actually comply with that information request?
My conversations with the attorney with Pierce County Elections and with the auditor was that we want to run in April, and I was adamant about that. They still wrote a letter to the governor because, like the search consultant said, Lakewood, for example, pulled out. They said they're not going to run a levy in April. The consensus was not from me, but from the auditor or the auditors and elections that they wrote a recommendation to the governor. At this point, I think we're waiting on two things. One is for the governor to decide if he's going to sign it or not. I'm going to be just honest. I think if you have the consensus of the people across the state who are making the recommendation to him, my hunch is he would sign it. I hope that's not the case, but if I had to guess, that's, I think, the brutal fact. And then the other thing is Rakedahl is going to the governor, and he has a bigger voice. And he heard us, and he's going to the governor, and he's going to see if there's any relief he can get for districts who are not able to run their levy. I don't have a timeline on that. He's really been working hard on our behalf. I know that, but
also we heard from Northwest that they on their end, on the north end, they also pulled out. They're not running their levy. Also, I talked to a legislator today, and she pretty much said he's going to sign it. And she used to be an old school board member, so.
I don't really envision a situation where he doesn't sign it, which is why I also agree that there's really no reason to start campaigning for a levy that's not going to run. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have the information completed, because bare minimum, it's going to run in August, and we're going to need the same information then.
Yeah, because right now, that's not on people top of mind. Right now, is on top of mind is surviving, because you got to realize you're going to have a lot of people unemployed pretty soon. So that's top of mind. We have any more questions on this? Let's move on to have an update from Marcy on coronavirus and what we're doing. Yo, Marcy.
Yes, I was pulling up my notes. Thank you. So as you know, that our schools are closed through April 24th. The governor, the state superintendent, and other leaders are saying we need to be prepared for a longer closure. To be clear, they're not saying there will be a longer closure. They don't know that yet, but they are saying just be ready in case. We're thinking, I was talking with leadership team yesterday and the day before, and we're having meetings exactly like we are right now. We're using the same platform that we've been meeting on. And at those meetings, I laid out 3 filters for our work around this for our leadership team. And number 1 is it necessary? So talking about people coming in, people gathering, the work that we need to continue, is it necessary? Number 2, can it be done remotely? Number 3, if it is necessary and it cannot be done remotely, then we need to abide by the health rules. So we're using those 3 filters as we're deciding who needs to come in, how much. Our work is going to look really different. People need to stay not on site. We have to figure out different ways to work together. And to the minimum services that we must provide for kids and families, we need to build people's schedules around that. But what it is not going to be about is, if somebody works 6 hours a day, were they there for all 6 hours, or did they clock in, or did they do something for all 6 hours? It's going to look different because this is just a really different time. Our state superintendent laid out 5 priorities in order. And so I want to share those 5 priorities with you and then explain what that looks and sounds like for the Orleans School District for each of those priorities. Number 1, feed kids. Number 2, pay staff. Number 3, childcare. And will somebody mute if you're not muted, please? Number 4, graduation. And where's number 4? Oh, number 5 is learning opportunities. So number 1, feed kids. We have been working as
There's
closures
something
action.
with your audible. You're going in and out.
Okay. Are you able to hear me?
Now.
Are you able to hear me? It might be more.
Yes.
Okay. For Feed Kids, I just want to make sure our team gets a lot of kudos because they sprang right into action to develop a plan to feed kids and deliver meals. That's not something our district has ever done and hasn't been equipped to do, but they immediately jumped in and formulated a plan. We are feeding all students who are 0 to 18 years old. It doesn't matter if they're on free reduced lunch or if they're not. Every single student gets 3 meals, and that's breakfast and lunch daily, Monday through Friday. We have 5 routes, and we have 5 stops on each route. So we're delivering food. We're like the Uber Eats of Orting. We're delivering food to 25 stops around our district. And we have pickup at the middle school from 10:30 to 12 each day. The first day that we did this was Tuesday, and we delivered, or students picked up, 256 meals. By Wednesday, we had 448 meals. And by Thursday, we had 501 meals. So we're feeding more and more kids every day. And again, I'm just so proud of our team. That's not something we've ever have done, but they created a plan and did that and executed it. They did a great job. And if you haven't muted, can you please mute? Number 2 is pay staff. We're going to continue to pay all staff. And again, Superintendent Rakedall in our conversation just today said employees do continue to do something to contribute. But again, that work is going to look different. It's not going to be, first of people shouldn't be on site unless they absolutely have to be. And number 1, is it essential? And number 2, can it be done remotely? So it will look different, but we will continue to pay staff. The third priority is childcare. Governor has asked that we provide childcare for children of healthcare workers and first responders. And so we've sent out a survey to our community, and that went out, I think it was, somebody needs to mute. I think it went out, I'm trying to remember because I sent that email. It was yesterday. So we have a survey that went out to find out who are K-5 students.
Can somebody mute that person?
I'm seeing if I can mute them.
Whoever's calling in on area code 206 with the last 2 digits 61 needs to mute their phone.
We can mute them, I think, from our end. So
I think I just muted them.
Yes, you did. Good job.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm learning.
The beauty of online.
Our leadership team has met. Our leadership team has met for 2 full days on this platform, and that's the first time I've used it. So, but I haven't had the opportunity to mute someone. Mr. Rab, now that I know how to do that, I feel like you should be worried. That was a joke, because I can say that because I love Steve. Sorry, I saw it. It paused for a moment. We're preparing to serve kids who are kindergarten through 5th grade and who are children of healthcare and first responders. That survey went out. Tara gave me an update today, and I'm not sure if it's the most recent update, Tara, but today Tara let me know that 15 people have responded to our survey requesting care for 19 students so far.
I can check right now, actually, and see if that's the most recent.
Was that the most recent, Tara?
I'll look right now. I haven't checked since about noon today.
Okay. Oh, it's okay. Then I have the one that's about noon today.
Yeah.
So 15 people have responded to our childcare survey requesting care for 19 kids so far. So that's priority 3. We had number 1, feed kids, number 2, pay staff, number 3, childcare. Priority 4 is graduation. This is the one that I have the least amount of information on because the state hasn't made decisions yet. They're anticipating an update on this date. We were on a call today, state, and we're anticipating an update March 23rd on that. So we don't have information on that right now. Number 5, the 5th priority is learning opportunities for kids. We know that there's no substitution for actual teachers who know kids and work with kids. We're working right now to create learning opportunities that it's practice for kids, that's enrichment, that keeps kids engaged and learning and thinking. And today, and in our conversations actually all throughout the week and last week, the state superintendent said, take this opportunity to think about how you might think of ways to move to online learning, not completely, but how can we build a capacity to be able to do that when and if it's needed? So that's not something for now, but something just to think forward about. Information is changing fast. In some cases, a decision is made, we push out the communication, and then a decision is changed within hours. So information is really changing rapidly, and we're staying updated. I'm on phone calls with superintendents and with the state superintendent and with the governor and with the Pierce County Health Department. So I'm connected on phone calls. The communications teams are meeting, so Tara's on those. Today, tomorrow, teaching and learning people, or was it today? Teaching and learning people are meeting, so Steve's in that call. So we're really trying to keep updated on what's happening. What questions? So if you have any pieces to add, please do. And for what questions?
I don't know what you just said. I couldn't understand it.
Okay. I've emailed you the information, so I've been keeping the board updated via email as well. One concern I've been hearing though from the PSC people is they are concerned about whether they're still going to be paid, and so maybe their information just needs to be reiterated more or communicate more. But I know that some of them are very concerned about that, and I'm kind of concerned, confused about who's doing remote work, because there's lots of people over at the district office, so I guess I'm kind of confused as to the guidelines for that. Yeah, we have communicated to all staff that they're getting paid, and so we'll continue to clarify that. We are saying we have our filters about there should not be a lot of people at the district office. We've been saying, first, is it essential? Number 2, can it be done remotely? So I know even Bonnie and Jill, I've asked them not to come in. We had med pickup one day from 8 to 12. So I said, Bonnie, can you come in that day, 8 to 12, for example, to have the doors open and then go again and do everything you can remotely. So we're really encouraging our teams to do what they can remotely. And our filters, again, are number 1, is it essential? Number 2, can it be done remotely? And number 3, if it is essential and cannot be done remotely, how can we abide by the social distancing guidelines? Because really, everything that each of us does counts and matters and can ripple out to other people.
Yeah, I would just add to that in light of all of the flux in the information, we've spent a little short of not even a whole week of trying to get together and making plans, contingency plans that within a period of 12 to 18 hours, they became irrelevant because of the changes that were being made. But I think we stand here right now with reason to be extremely proud of our leaders, particularly our building leaders, as today they really rolled out for their certificated and their classified staff guidelines and expectations. And I would say that what they had to work with was the best we could come up with, but on any given day would be considered minimal to what a good high standard would be. But what I witnessed today in terms of their leadership with their staff, both certificated and classified, and actually holding meetings with both, was just exemplary leadership on the part of the principals. And having been a building principal myself for a lot of years, I just had tremendous pride with how they managed this situation and how they led their staff. You would never know, and their staff had no idea when they were meeting with them, the pressure that they've been under, the stress that they've been feeling, the issues that they've been dealing with, and with a lot of unknown variables. And what the staff saw today in their leaders was calm, confident, and optimistic. And I just would share that with you, because I think as a board of directors, you should be extremely proud of your leaders in your buildings and the work that they're doing with your staff. And hopefully, Director Madigan, the classified staff after today feel a little bit better about that, because I did know that they actually had specific communication with them. They literally physically called every staff member before today. It was unbelievable. And so anyway, I could go on and on. I'm feeling like a proud papa, so you should know that.
Oh, I heard about the meetings from the PSC staff, and they felt very supported by the principals, but they did still feel confusion about the district and being paid. So I'm just letting you know that, because when we have problems, I think it's important to let you know what the community is feeling.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That is one of the things I think has been our biggest challenge, is because information is changing so fast. Just as soon as we put something together, we're ready to push out, it becomes irrelevant and we have to kind of cycle it back. But then we're also up against that timeline of people need to know something. And so I appreciate you bringing that forward. And I know principals are really reaching out to their staff about any information that they need further clarification on. I think it's a little bit of a bumpy start, but I think we're going to get really, really solid here pretty quick.
Dr. Madigan and Board of Directors, this is Debbie Christensen, and I wanted to let you know that we drafted an email in Human Resources today. It is set to go out to all employees in the morning, and we have already provided an email to all of our substitutes. I believe that went out today, but it might have been last night, and that does have information for them since they are not under the being paid guideline at this time.
Thank you.
I would just like to take a moment to recognize the teachers on the parent side of things. My son got emails from Mr. Malay and Mr. Hernkine, and just reaching out to them and caring for the students and making that connection. I just appreciate the care and the work that they're doing to stay connected to the kids and to encourage learning in whatever shape and form they can do at the time. So, Steve, in addition to recognizing the administration and all the hard workers out feeding, I can't believe that, over 500 meals to the kids. Just thanking everybody and appreciating the teamwork and the unity that the district is showing. So thank you.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's just getting started. That's the number one piece that they were most concerned about, was their kids. And so with the whole social distancing thing, we had to put some pretty strict boundaries. I mean, they wanted to drive work to the kids' house. We're like, we love your heart for the kids, but you just can't do that. And so, but yeah, that's just beginning. We're going to get a lot of that from this point forward.
Any other comments? Questions?
And I'm getting a ton talking about questions from the community with a son who's a senior. I'm getting a lot of questions about what's happening with graduation, and are the kids graduating, and do they get to have a graduation ceremony? Will they have credits for this. There are a lot of questions, so I'm looking forward to that update on March 23rd.
That's one of the things that's giving me heartburn too as well, Carrie, and that I think we're waiting on pins and needles about. So I was glad to hear Superintendent Rakedahl today give us a date on when we would hear something, and it is March 20th.
And you have two really outstanding people at the high school with Cliff and Matt that are already putting pieces in place to anticipate that no kid slips through the crack. We are waiting on guidance so that we know what's going to be expected, but they're already building contingency plans on that front.
Great.
Can you guys hear me? This is Fred, please.
Anything else, Marcy?
No, I don't have any further updates on that.
I'm aware of the time, so we're going to just skip through we're going to skip to the last two on reports. We're going to put that to another meeting. The second reading, I'm not sure, there's no action taken on the second reading. Did anybody get any questions on the second reading?
No.
Stanley, I have a general question about the reports. We're going to skip 2, 3, and 4 and push those back to the next meeting.
Yeah, at the end, we're going to get together and try to...
You guys, wait, I think Mark needed feedback from us on number 3, was it? I think we had to make a decision on number 3. Is that correct, Marcy?
I believe we need to hear about, and Debbie, can you chime in, please? I believe we need to hear about the asset preservation plan.
Okay. Well, let's
Debbie, can you confirm that?
We do have a responsibility to OSPI to have at least shared the information with you. So to honor that April 1st deadline, I can absolutely shorten it and get it down to a minute or two, but to honor the fact that it is important for us to share the information with you ahead of that date, I would love for it to be on the agenda tonight.
So go ahead with that right now.
Okay, so I will let you know that the ICOS is an acronym for Information and Condition of Schools. It is a program that is web-based. It's through OSPI. It is to provide us an opportunity to be accountable to our stakeholders and taxpayers and make sure that our buildings are in a condition that is acceptable for schools and for educating kids. And I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation, which I will not go through fully tonight, but you do have it available to you on the board docs. We also have, there is an ICOS report. This year we did a self-inspection that is allowable, and then every 6 years we have an external inspector that comes in. We are up for that next year. This year, our self-inspection was through our facilities supervisor, who went and checked out all of the areas that ICOS requires, whether it be heating and cooling, doors, that type of thing. We rated them and we submitted that to the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. We also submitted today, the date of today, that you would be reviewing this information. And so I wanted to make sure to draw your attention to the fact that that is a resource that you have, and we are providing that to you at this time. The other item that I won't go through in detail unless you have questions is we updated the facilities and maintenance plan. It is not our capital facilities plan. It is our day-to-day work with small projects and the small public works, the small roster for public works. It is also available on the website. And that concludes my report unless you have some questions.
This is Melissa. Debbie, I did have a couple questions on my meeting, but I don't need them addressed here. If I could just get it in an email or however you want to answer the questions later, that's fine. I don't need it addressed here for time's sake, but that would be great.
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Debbie.
Yes, sir.
I understand that you were required by April 1st to get this to us. If we come up with any additional questions, can we also add it back onto the agenda in a future meeting to cover those?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to share and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions? We're going to move to section E, the second reading. We do need that is an action item. So any questions?
I had no questions on that.
I have no questions either.
No questions.
So can I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the second reading.
I'll second it.
So that's George first, Kathy second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Passed. Thank you. The next one will be on the consent agenda, items 1 through 9.
President Holland, this is Debbie, would you like me to quickly answer questions or table them?
No questions. Go ahead and answer them.
Okay. So there was a question about an insurance claim that was made and paid for a flagpole that was damaged on our OPS, our Ording Primary School property. The question was, seeing the voucher go out, did we receive the insurance payment for that? And yes, we did. That was simply an accounting process as opposed to us being on the hook for that amount of money. So we did run that through our risk pool. Another question was asked about the Verizon wireless phone plan. And the question was, as I understand it, are people receiving stipends and phones? The answer is yes, but not this. It's different people. So some are receiving phones, some are receiving stipends. No two people should be receiving both unless one of those is, unless one of the data plans is for their iPad, which is to allow them to do things. For example, we have one of our employees in maintenance who needs an iPad with a data plan on it so that he can operate remotely to adjust some of our heating and cooling systems. So we currently have 7 phones that are issued. One of those is a safety phone that is for specific emergencies. Should we have a disaster or catastrophe that requires special access to be able to call out. The others are in use by employees. And then we have 6 data plans, but as of March 6th, 3 of them for iPads were canceled. The next question was about when we did an upload, apparently pages 47 and 48 within our vouchers are blank. They are not blank on our end, and we are working to resolve that to be able to provide those to you. Sorry about that. And then we also had a question about on page 49, there were multiple entries for wrestling fees and insurance. And the question was, are they for a different group of students? And why are there multiple entries? The answer is these are payments to the Ording Junior Wrestling for all of their events this season. Junior Wrestling is part of our OHS ASB club. And they are for different groups of students ranging from 3 years old to 8th grade. And that concludes my questions unless there's unless there's any additional ones.
Thank you, Debbie.
I have a question. You mentioned that 2 pages of the vouchers we don't have visibility to presently. Is that accurate?
It was accurate earlier today. I don't know if Bonnie Christian is still on the line. She was working with Marcy Bannon to make those available to you.
I am still on the line, and that was corrected. We actually rescanned it and uploaded it. So you should have access to it currently.
Thank you, Bonnie. You're so good.
Thank you.
Give me a minute to go take a look at those pages. Make sure I don't have any questions on those.
Yep, give me a minute too, please. Thanks.
Go ahead, take a look at them.
They say them.
At least on my end, it looks, I'm sorry. This is Debbie. At least on my end, it looks like the pages in question were actually 46 and 47 because the wrestling information is on 48.
Mm-hmm. Go control delete. It will move the test energy. It's running some taking in memory. If it is. That's right. So, your disk is 100%.
I'm good.
Scroll down and see what's that dark one that was up top? Navigate set.
I don't think that's one of us talking in the background.
I'm good.
I don't have further questions on that.
Can we entertain a motion?
Wait, I had one more question. You're talking for the consent agenda?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I had one more question, and I break some to say this, but the sports med club field trip occurs before school returns. I don't know, I guess I could.
All activities before, that occur before April 24th won't be happening. I think we built the agenda before that, so.
Right.
That won't be occurring.
Okay, so we just.
Go ahead. I was gonna say, what about field trips? Are they gonna cancel all field trips?
Right now, we are only canceling activities through the date of the school closures, which is April 24th.
Yeah, so the sports med field trip doesn't look like that'll happen, unfortunately. But we can still approve the consent agenda and it'll just won't happen.
Wouldn't it be more appropriate to remove it? If there's already been the decision made that it won't happen, why would we approve the?
Well, that's a good question. You know, if we went ahead and approved it, but they were able to reschedule it at a later date, would they have to resubmit it for approval? If that's even an option for them?
If it's an overnight field trip, we would have them resubmit it because we like the board to know when people are gone. You could either accept the consent agenda. Anything that happens before April 24th won't happen. Or you can say you'd like to approve items 1 through 4 and 6 through 9. It's up to you.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to entertain a motion or open a motion to approve items 1 through 4 and 6 through 9.
I'll second that.
It's been first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Aye. Thank you. The next one will be this action item on G. First one is a supplementary approval.
Although I hate to let go of any book because I'm a book hoarder, I will go ahead and move to approve the disposal of the surplus items as presented.
This is Melissa. I second.
It's on mute.
It's been first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes pass it. Thank you. The next one will be the resolution number 4.2019.20. Any questions?
I did have one question that it's not technically our property, but there was a note in there that said they're going to remove the sidewalk coming out of the Safeway parking lot, or the crosswalk, excuse me, removing the crosswalk coming out of the Safeway parking lot. And I'm assuming they're going to retain the trail markings on the road. But I'm just concerned about the safety of our students, and I want to make sure that that continues to be a safe crosswalk for them. So it's not our property, but maybe in our response to them, if we could please draw their attention to that's a high traffic crosswalk. And that during construction, we make sure the students are protected and that there's great visibility for them when they're crossing the street. I think the use of the two corners of our property, I'm fine with. I don't have any concerns as it's drawn on the map. But I do want to make sure that student safety is priority.
I think that's a really good point, Carrie. Thank you for bringing that up. I agree.
This is Debbie, and I will be happy. I'll be happy to provide that information. I took some notes while you were speaking, and when we scan the signed document to them, assuming that it is approved, we will provide that information.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Let's entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve resolution number 4.2019-20 for the curbing project.
Can we get a second?
I second it.
Sorry about getting calls from work. All in favor?
Wait, I'm sorry. Is it still discussion? I just thought of something.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Will they be doing construction during when school is starting and when school is letting out? And can we ask them to avoid those times?
Director Thibodeau, this is Debbie, and I will check on that. Right now, they are looking to go out to bid, so it's not currently on their calendar to complete the work. But I will find out what their estimated timeline is for that. And I can communicate that back through our superintendent to you.
Thank you.
And I think that they can do that. They can schedule a time of construction that won't conflict with the school schedule.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Can we get an approval on it? A motion? Sorry.
Okay, again, I'll move to approve resolution number 4.2019-20 for the curbing project.
And I'll second it again.
Thank you.
All right. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, man. Thank you. Well, I'm hearing news. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I don't know how to believe it. I'm getting news that the government is going to do take it as you want. The official say the lockdown, lock in place, stay in place. So I don't know if that's true or not. You got something to say, Tony? Nope. No? Okay. The next one is resolution number 5, 219-20, Ptarmigan Ridge.
This is prepared by, did the board have any questions on that?
Okay. It says action item, so.
Yeah, I don't have any questions on that one.
No.
No questions?
No questions.
Nope.
All right, thank you. We're at the end. Next thing, we'll move to board comments. Hey, we do have Tony online. Hey, Tony, would you like to say a couple of words?
Hey, Stanley, we've got a motion. I think we've got a motion on that.
Yeah, we have to approve that.
Oh, okay, sorry. Hold on, Tony.
Okay.
Can we get a motion?
This is Melissa. Motion to approve resolution number 5, 2019-20 for the Ptarmigan Ridge Elementary School Portable Project.
Second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes passes. Thank you. Now we can go to board comments. And Tony, welcome.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. Holland, President Holland, and members of the board for inviting me to listen in on tonight's meeting. Certainly, the tasks and challenges ahead are not for the faint-hearted, and I look forward to working with everyone on these very challenging projects and very important duties on behalf of the students and the community. So I'm going to be meeting with Mr. Holland tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and I just want to say thank you to Bonnie and to Debbie for reaching out and helping me over the last couple of days. And I just look forward to getting started and meeting with the board members next week, members of the SALT team, as well as principals and members of the key communicators within the community all of next week. So again, I look forward to the challenge, and there's a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Tony.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I noticed a Cougar football in the background. Clearly, you do like challenges.
That's for sure.
George.
I gotta let you know I'm a Husky dad, so.
I love the Huskies and I love the Cougars, but I love the Huskies during Apple Cup more.
That's great. Any board comments?
Just curiosity. I know, Stanley, you and I talked earlier, and this is more towards Tony, but are we going to have opportunities to meet with you individually next week?
I hope so.
Each board member having a chance to meet with you, and if that's going to work out, then I'd like to schedule something or start seeing some schedules go out on that. I'll clear up my schedule for you.
Great. Tomorrow morning, I'll be working with Bonnie, and we'll get those scheduled with every board member next week.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
No, just welcome, Dr. Apostle. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I feel very welcomed and really appreciate the graciousness that people have welcomed me.
Looking forward to work with you.
We're very excited to have you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
We're really looking forward to meeting with you. Thank you.
All right. I look forward to it too.
I just have one comment on when we was talking, when Levy was talking, that I approved Dr. Shepard's to work on remotely. That's incorrect. I'm only one board member. I can't speak for the board. So I did not approve anything. So let's get that straight. And as a board member, as a former board member, she should know that not one board member can make decisions for the board. I just want to get that out there.
Well,
thank you.
Stanley, since you brought that up, though, I got a lot of concerns from people about that she wasn't in town and that she was working remotely, and I had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, I found out on Wednesday. So we can discuss it. Like I say, I just want to make sure you know I didn't approve that. That wasn't approved by me.
Stanley, I want to say thank you for bringing that up. I think that if it wasn't just me that was questioning that, I just thank you for bringing that out.
I thank you, because I had a question about that, so thank you.
Yes, so I don't want to get on the bad foot. That wasn't me. So also we have a gift. Bonnie, are you online?
I am here, yes.
All righty. Our favorite Bonnie.
Oh, thank you so much. I believe that the board has a gift for Dr. Shepard, and I gave her that earlier this week if she wanted to open it. Are you there, Marcy?
I am.
God, my phone's going off like crazy.
Yeah, I just got it yesterday when meeting with Bonnie. I got it yesterday, so if the board would like me to open it, I'd be happy to.
Yes, Go for it.
Yes, but yes, go.
Still there, Marcy?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I see pictures of different boards and board groupings and a little note of appreciation.
Well, thank you. Any other questions or any comments from the board?
I just have a question. We have
Pour into our team. So it's truly a highlight of, and some of the biggest joys of my whole life and certainly my career. I absolutely love our administrative team, teachers, staff, classified staff, our central office are so incredibly exceptional. And I feel blessed to have been a part of the journey with them.
Thank you for all your efforts, Marcy.
Yeah, thank you, Marcy. This is somebody on a call earlier today said this is a terrible way to say thank you and goodbye, but it's the reality of our world, and you've dedicated so much to our district. So thank you, and we wish you well in your next adventure.
I just want to thank you, and you have a great life. And don't forget to live your life.
Thanks, everyone.
Stanley?
Yes, I am.
I was going to wait a second to see if her phone went off again, but
no, I'm waiting. Just emails. I guess the governor of California just locked down the state of California.
Yeah, 40 million people impacted. Do we need to do a motion to move the agenda items that we did not address in this meeting to a later meeting, or can we just ignore them?
First, we need to set a meeting date, if I'm correct, and then move the items to that meeting. Bonnie, is that correct, Bonnie?
That is correct. So, Stanley, we can look at a time now. We can meet the second Thursday of April. If that works at 6 o'clock for a board work session, and we can just move those two items.
If that works for everybody else on the board?
Yeah, it looks like that's the 9th. Seeing that correctly, what would normally be during spring break, that kind of stings a little, but yes.
April 9th or April 2nd, either one.
I think April 9th would be better.
We'll have definitely more information by then, since it seems to change every hour. So motion to, it's not an emergency meeting, it's just adding a meeting.
You don't need a motion. I think you're just adding the meeting.
Yeah.
You don't need a motion. Hey, Tony, that's okay with you, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. So we're going to have a meeting on the 9th. It's a regular meeting. It's a board workshop. And we're going to move those items. And plus we'll end up, Tony and you, me, we'll get together. We'll probably add some items on that list. So it's going to just be a regular meeting that we usually have canceled because of WASDA. But
very well.
Okay, I was letting the dog out. Sorry. This is going to be a study, a work session, or a regular board meeting?
So we have a board. It could be a work session. So we have a board meeting. We also have another board meeting that month also. So let's make this the work session. Then we have a regular board meeting later on. And if we need to, we can change it.
Okay, just checking. I thought I missed something when I let the dog out.
No, you're fine. As long as the doggy's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, any other comments or questions? I just want to say thank you. I hope we didn't keep you long. Marcy, have a great life. The meeting's adjourned at 8:49, and we'll be back soon. Same time, same place. Have a good
Okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Take care, everybody.